All right, welcome back to Draws and Fades, episode 106, preview of the Rocket Mortgage Classic at the Detroit Golf Club in Detroit, Michigan. I'm your host, Owen Vrabel, joined by my co-host, Matthew Miller.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
And producer, Nick Boss.
What's going on, fellas? How we doing?
Doing pretty good. Before we get into last week at the 3M, we obviously took a little week off there, but this podcast is sponsored by Rotoballer. Make sure to win big in 2022 with rotoballer.com's PGA Premium Pass. Rotoballer Premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, and our lineup optimizer to help you win big. For limited time, get your PGA Premium Pass for 50% off. Use promo code DNF10 for another 10% discount. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio to sign up today. Start rotoballing like a boss. So, I don't think we really need to recap the 3M. Obviously, we didn't preview it. We didn't really have too much exposure on it. I will say Tony Finau wins the 3M after a little Scott Piercy collapse on the back nine on Sunday. And although little to no exposure, it's still pretty devastating because I had Tony Finau slotted as my one-and-done pick till the last-minute change of heart. Picked Davis Riley instead. Pretty tragic mistake there as Davis Riley misses the cut and Tony Finau wins. So that's really all I have to say about the 3M. That was pretty devastating, although Tony Finau now has won multiple times in the calendar year, and our narrative on him not being able to win is completely blown away. So congrats to Tony Finau. And I don't know if you guys had any positives that came out of the 3M.
No, I didn't have much positive coming out of it. It's been a rough kind of stretch for us with guys who we declared can't win. Dating back to Fitz at the U.S. Open, then Xander won twice, now Tony Finau. I think we're just kind of flipping the script entirely, and people are now who can't win are just starting to win.
Yeah.
Who's next then by that mantra?
I'm trying to figure out who else. Those are probably our biggest three culprits. Who else do we say can't win?
There really isn't. I really don't think that there's some. Well, there's a couple guys out there still that haven't won PGA Tour events like Fleetwood. But then and then veterans that haven't won in a while, I guess. But I think even from the younger guys' standpoint, besides the guys that have come recently off the Korn Ferry Tour, like Zalatoris and Young, there's not really a guy who's consistently up at the top of the odds list like they've been that weren't winning. Those were the culprits, and now they're now winners. So good for them. Not good for us, but that's okay. Every dog has its day, and those dogs have been having their day. And not many underdogs have been having their day. We've had guys at the top of the odds list win a ton of events over the past few months. We haven't had a true long shot win in quite some time. KH Lee defends his title, and that really was the only one that's been close to a true long shot winning. So before we get into the Rocket Mortgage, that I don't know whether to fade that narrative or go with it, but kind of feels like we're due for a long shot winner.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty crazy. We haven't had one in a while. This certainly feels like a week that we can get one. I'm sure we'll get more into the preview of it, but we've seen guys win, 2 of the last 3 years in the 20s. One of them was Nate Lashley, which is kind of as big of a long shot as could possibly be. He wasn't even in the field to start the week. So
true.
It kind of seems like this is an event where anyone could pop off and win. Even last year, Troy Merritt was in a playoff. We've seen Matt Wolff, when he lost, we can get into that. He was going off at 85-1. That's not really a huge long shot, but I remember that number because I had a ticket on him. And he had a 3-shot lead going into Sunday and squandered it by hole 3, I think. So pretty impressive stuff there. But it definitely, any kind of these birdie fest events, where there's not much trouble to get into, it kind of feels like it opens it up for longer plays because you're not going to see a ton of bogeys out there.
Yeah, fair enough. So we will definitely preview the course at Detroit Golf Club. We'll give you our strategy for this week. Obviously, it seems like we may be leaning towards some long shots. We'll give you our one-and-done picks, go through the odds list on FanDuel. Although I'll probably bounce around with DK a little bit because DraftKings definitely has some better numbers the farther you go down the board. We'll give you our outright picks, top 10s and 20s. And, thank you all for listening. Again, we appreciate it. We've done enough over the past couple of years to be privileged enough to get media credentialed passes for the LIV Golf Tournament that's taking place in Bedminster this week. So if you're interested in that, we will be talking LIV on a separate episode that also drops today, and that's very exciting. So we'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that LIV golf is booming at this point. I mean, they're taking guys left and right. I think we're going to see more of that as the months go on here, as the PGA Tour season comes to an end. We'll see how many other guys end up over there. But yeah, we will be in Bedminster this week, so that's exciting. And they've already taken some names that would be relevant this week at the Rocket Mortgage. As you mentioned, Matt Wolff, Bryson DeChambeau obviously won that year. They're both on the LIV for this week, and they will be in Bedminster and not in Detroit. So, yeah, I mean, that being said, because we will get into LIV on our other episode, but the odds list for this tournament, obviously there would be a few bigger names here this week if there wasn't the competition that's going on with LIV at this point. But, I mean, more golf to bet on, more fun for everyone. I do understand the standpoint of we're taking talent away from the PGA Tour, which kind of disparages from the competition of what's going on the PGA Tour, but it seems inevitable at this point that the LIV Golf Tour is going to be living on for at least the near future. We'll see what happens, but I don't know what's going to stop this train at this point. So I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Matt. We will be on site and hopefully seeing some of our favorite golfers. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously pretty crazy how we sort of stumbled into media credentialing on that one. We'll certainly get into that on our separate episode this week, but yeah, be sure to check that out. Definitely, it was an interesting process. But yeah, as far as the tour goes, I mean, I think there's several arguments to be made. I think there's new up and coming golfers that now are going to get to kind of shine as a result. I mean, last year, a lot of people didn't even hear of Cam Young. Now he's, kind of an up and coming superstar in the golf world. So you always kind of get these new names that pop up each year that are now going to get a chance to blow up as a result of this. And yeah, I mean, it's certainly taking talent away from the PGA Tour, but as a lot of people have said, LIV's just getting the names that the PGA Tour doesn't need anymore. That's been the argument. They're all the washed up guys. So I don't understand how you could argue on both sides out of your mouth. Seems like a lot of people are doing that. On one side saying they hate LIV because they're taking away the big names, and on the other side saying, well, PGA didn't really lose anyone big. So kind of interesting argument there, but we can touch on that more next episode as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into that. I mean, there surprisingly is still a pretty strong field this week. I mean, it's deep. It's not top heavy, but there are a lot of players under 100 to 1 on the odds list. And like I said, I think that this is a good week to be taking a look at some long shots. But I will say that considering that it isn't as top heavy as it should be, if you're over 100 to 1, I have to at least take a peek as to why you're over 100 to 1, because there are a shit ton of guys that are under 100 to 1. And I mean, we're talking about guys who clearly don't win very often. And I'm kind of hoping that the narrative changes here in terms of the betting market and having guys go off at 14, 15 to 1, winning these golf tournaments. Takes a little bit of fun out of placing some long shot bets. So I think I'm hopeful in Detroit this week that we're going to have some competition from some of our longer picks. So that being said, Matt, Detroit Golf Club for the PGA Tour this week. It's getting interesting previewing multiple events in a certain week, but we're here in Detroit for this episode. And I mean, Rocket Mortgage Classic is still relatively new. 2019, first year, Nate Lashley was not even part of the field until last minute. Then he goes wire to wire. And then most recently, obviously, Cameron Davis won in 2021. And we talked about the year where Bryson and Matt Wolff had a little showdown there in 2020. So seeing a little disparity here in terms of what to look for. It's going to be a little tricky, but what do we got for it at the course of Detroit?
Yeah, we have a Donald Ross design this week. It is a pure birdie fest. There's no other real way to describe it. There's not a whole lot of trouble on the course. Even last week, I mean, there was some trouble to get into with the water. This week, you're not really even going to see this. I mean, there is some tree-lined fairways, but you're allowed to miss and get away with it still. Off the tee, I would say distance is advantageous, as it usually is. But most of this week, I'm looking at approach and putting. The greens are a mix of bent and POA. But you kind of touched on it the previous couple of years. I mean, Nate Lashley won first year of the event. He wasn't even in the field to start the week. Kind of gives you an idea of just how open this event is for anyone to win. Bryson DeChambeau took down Matt Wolff on Sunday 2 years prior. They both finished in the 20s for the winning score. I expect to see that again this year unless we get some sort of crazy inclement weather that would change that. Last year, Cam Davis won -18 in a playoff over Joaquin Niemann and Troy Merritt. I had Joaquin Niemann in that event. I was all ready to count my winnings, and then he lost in a playoff, unfortunately. And I remember I had to go directly to a family party for my wife's family. So not a fun, not some fun conversations with the aunts and uncles after that one. But nonetheless, just kind of goes to show how open this event is for a lot of guys winning. I mean, Cam Davis, I think, went off at 125-1. Troy Merritt, I imagine, was even deeper than that. I think Niemann at this point, I mean, he hadn't won, he had won once before, but it was kind of a swing season event. So I think even he was going off somewhere in like the 40 or around 50 in that event. So it is pretty open to a lot of guys. It's going to be a putting contest. Obviously, putting is the most, variant stat there is. So it's kind of hard to predict, who's going to get hot with the putter each week. I think approach is really going to be the key stat this week. I mean, guys who are going to be giving themselves the most birdie opportunities and even eagle looks are going to be the guys that are going to win this week. You're not going to have to worry about scrambling or around the green because if you're scrambling this week, you have zero chance to win. So that's pretty much what I'm looking for, mostly approach and putting. I mean, off the tee, obviously distance will be an advantage, but guys have, played well here before who weren't long hitters. So it's not do or die, in that category.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. Definitely an approach ball striking week. The guys who are doing that best, and the guys out of that group that putt are going to win this event. I mean, you got to give yourself looks at birdie. In the par fives, you got to be making birdies on the par fives. So I really like the guys who have been playing well on approach and ball striking, and who are giving themselves good looks. I mean, with their wedges to short irons in between 100, 150 yards. Again, we saw Bryson and Matt Wolff duel it out, so we know that the Bombers could have an advantage here. But again, those guys both putted well that week, so it's not something that you can look too much into. I think that this is certainly an open event that different styles of play have an opportunity to win here. And I think the longer this tournament gets held, you're going to see, I think, a continued variance, although it has only been 3 years, so maybe we'll start seeing the Bombers continue to play well here or some other narrative. But till then, I think, like we've seen many of the elite players complain about at times, this is definitely a putting contest week where some guys who don't necessarily hit the ball as far or as well, if they can get hot on the greens, they're going to have a chance to win. And that's the disparity you're looking for on an odds list, where you see a guy that has some sort of current form and has some semblance of a decent putter. You could get behind it in any type of spin zone to hope that a long shot play could come through this week. So that's what I'm looking at. Obviously, like you said, birdies are important. So I looked at birdies gained, proximity from 100 to 150. And yeah, I definitely think it's one of those weeks where you take a look at the board and see maybe some better numbers on certain guys on different books, and you take your shots where you find them. So I like where we're at, Matt. Let's get into the odds list. I'm on FanDuel right now. Like I said, I think I'll pivot back to DraftKings at certain points. But for the top of the board, not a ton of value. So Patrick Cantlay is at 10-1, Tony Finau at 13, Will Zalatoris, Cam Young are at 14 and 16. And then Max Homa at 22-1, Cam Davis at 27. Then a slew of guys between 33 and 42 on FanDuel. I'll read a bunch of them out. Webb Simpson, Keegan Bradley, Adam Scott, Sahith Theegala, Davis Riley, Kevin Kisner, Matt McNeely, Cam Tringali, Cam Champ, and then Adam Hadwin, Chris Kirk, Denny McCarthy, and Russell Huntley. So got a large group to start with there because I don't think we're going to be taking too many guys up top. I think we're going to be looking a little bit further down the board. So I'll open it up to the top of the board. Anything that intrigued you, I think it's interesting. FanDuel offering a much better number on Max Homa than DraftKings, and maybe a little bit more value at the top of the board if you're looking to get into some of the better players here this week. You get a little bit more value on FanDuel. So I'm slightly intrigued on the Homa number. But other than that, at under 30, not anything I truly love.
Yeah, I mean, I like Homa usually. It's a pretty good number. He seems to check out pretty well at this course.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously good approach. He's good off the tee, but he's a really good putter too. His weakness is kind of around the green, and you don't have to worry about that this week. At least you shouldn't. The only thing I am hesitant on is like usually if you pick guys up top, it's not a bad move because you look at it and you think, only
one of the better players.
X amount of guys have a chance to actually win this event. When you start getting into an event where it feels like a lot of the players are in play to win because of how it's set up, it's always a little bit more intimidating to go up the top of the board because it almost feels like their value shrinks a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it seems more random, which means that you should be taking a little bit better numbers. So I think it definitely makes sense. And I think the other thing, I mean, we could talk about the other guys too, but Homa, I think we're looking at the top of the board at least. I mean, he's been proven to be able to win on the PGA Tour at this point. But like we mentioned a lot of times when we're in more difficult course setups, Homa seems to thrive when the golf gets tough and not necessarily when it's a birdie fest. So, I mean, just even on Fantasy National, last 36 rounds, strokes gained total on easy courses, Homa's 76th. So it's not a situation he typically thrives in, and I think we look for him in more of those grinded out type situations where, par is a good score. So it's kind of tough to go this high up the board. I think really in any capacity, it's certainly at 14-1 on DraftKings. I'd be staying away for sure.
Yeah, I like that again as well.
And I think that kind of goes to the point, even with Zalatoris too. I think we look at him as a guy who plays better in tougher conditions. And I think it's tough to take a guy who hasn't won and who doesn't necessarily thrive in birdie fest situation to win at 14-1. Patrick Cantlay is certainly the most proven golfer here. He's a 10-1 to 8-1. That's just obscene for an event like this. He could definitely win, but if that happens, so be it. And Tony Finau to go back to back. Again, if that happens, so be it. Like, there's a bunch of certain circumstances up here where it's really tough to take the guys at the top of the board.
Yeah, I will say I think it's a pretty tough setup for Zalatoris. I mean, not tough. I'm sure he can play fine, but this is like the opposite of the event that I would want him at. I mean, he's one of those guys, like you said, he's a great ball striker. So on long, difficult courses, he doesn't make a ton of bogeys, but in a birdie fest, I wouldn't necessarily, go with him just because putting is kind of his weakness. And you're going to have to make a ton of birdie putts this week if you want to win.
Yep, 100%. And I think you could even say similar. I mean, Cam Young, played great golf this year, and we've seen him thrive in difficult scoring conditions. And now he's at 16-1 on FanDuel. If you get burned by one of these guys up top, I think you take it and you move on. But I definitely think we're kind of on the same page here. We're moving towards the middle of the board and longer shots. Seems more. I'm not going to say profitable because one of these guys could easily win, and then you're it's certainly not making any profits, unless you're hitting some top 10s and 20s. But I don't know. Didn't love the top of the board this week. There are some guys that I did mention in the mid range that I'm taking a look at. So anyone that you want to start your card with, Matt, under 45-1?
I'm thinking of starting my card with Russell Henley.
Let's go. All right.
Yeah, one of your guys. I mean, I don't typically take him, but this kind of seems like a week that he can win. And it's kind of weird because I know that he has, kind of died off recently in terms of, popularity and, a lot of people picking him or talking about him. But this is like kind of the number that we would see Russell Henley at in like a pretty decent event throughout the year. So now an event where it's not really a lot of notable winners toward the top. Obviously you have Cantlay, but it kind of feels pretty wide open. It's kind of a decent number on him. He's still a great iron player, probably one of the better ones in the field. I think he's fourth in his last 36 rounds on approach. So I think that if he can get the putter going, I think he's very capable of winning this week. He's, one of the more veteran guys. He's not. I don't think he's gonna. Well, he has had a history of kind of folding down the stretch, but if he's up against a guy,
don't remind me. He's definitely folded down the stretch.
But I mean, to be fair, when he, folded the last 2 times, it was like Hideki chasing him. He lost to Kisner. Now, I mean, not to say a veteran can't be around, but if he's up against a guy who also hasn't really won, it's kind of got a different feel to it.
Well, yeah, and eventually, and hey, maybe Russell Henley's the guy. We were talking about this at the beginning. Maybe Russell Henley's the guy.
Oh my God, yeah, you might have just nailed it. Russell Henley's the guy who can't win. Now he's going to win.
Yeah, boom. Yeah. So there we go. Yeah, I mean, Henley, I think, in theory, thrives on a course like this. He, the model I made this week, very simple model where really just approach ball striking, some putting, proximity, birdies gain, strokes gain total on easy courses, and he ranks out 9 for me. As bad as his finishes have been, he's still top 5 in this field in strokes gain approach, top 10 in ball striking, top 5 in proximity over his last 36 rounds, and 13th in birdies gained. And he plays well on easy courses, top 20 in this field in that category. So I think we might be able to get a little bit better number on DraftKings. Let me take a quick peek. Yeah, 55-1 on DraftKings, which I think is a beautiful spot. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I will also say, like, not all results are created equal. Like a lot of the time, depends what events that you're playing. So, for instance, Russell Henley, like this setup, like you said, it suits him. He's bad finishes when you're looking at events like the PGA Championship at Southern Hills, the U.S. Open, the Open. Like those aren't really events that you're going to expect him to go out and play really well at. Not to say that he can't, but he's definitely more of a guy that I would want in like a Birdie Fest type of event than an event where you have to like grind it out in real tough conditions.
Yep.
So I'm not like really too worried that he didn't play well at the U.S. Open. This is
and that's the last time we saw him choke one away was at the Sony Open, where this winning score was significantly under par. So I think, the sweet spot for Russell getting his next win is probably 17 to 23 under, and he just gets scorching hot with his irons and starts making some putts. So love that we're on the same page there. I'm considering going back to Denny McCarthy, another one of my guys who I've taken plenty of over the years. He's really not played well recently, and that's scary. But if there's one guy who can get scorching out with the putter, it's Denny McCarthy, and that's kind of what he does. I mean, he's still first in strokes gained putting over his last 36 rounds. He's as consistent as it gets with that. The last time he actually lost strokes putting was back in January. And the last time we saw him at the John Deere, he finished 6th and struck the ball extremely well. Gained 8.1 strokes tee to green, 5 strokes on approach. I think you get a better number with him on DraftKings as well. Not quite, 35. So it's not the best number. 42 on FanDuel. Probably guys, you've seen some better numbers out there through the week, but I like starting my card with 2 of my old favorites that I've loved to lose money on, Denny and Russ. So there we go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Denny is like really ever a tough sell at anything that you could describe as a putting contest,
Yeah.
So I definitely don't think that that's completely out of play at all.
Yeah, and I will say over the last year and a half, he's actually gotten better ball striking and better with his irons. We even saw him compete at the U.S. Open where he finished 7th. So, I mean, and that's probably why his odds are where they are. I mean, I think where you have a guy that's known for just making putts and really not a great ball striker, probably shouldn't ever really be under 50-1, but that's where we're at. We're at the Rocket Mortgage, and Denny is on the card at 42-1. So that's where I'm at. Matt, we're still under 45, so the floor is yours. I am extremely pissed off at Davis Riley for missing the cut last week, so I can't even begin to talk about him. Also, Thigala missed the cut last week too. It's interesting because, last week the winning score ended up being pretty low, but we did see some guys struggle, and I'm interested to see how the guys who didn't play well last week kind of rebound this week. There's a way less penalty at this course, so I think there were some blow-up holes last week for sure. I mean, we saw Hideki make a quadruple early on Thursday. So we'll see how the guys rebound. I don't necessarily think you need to be scared of guys who played poorly last week. Still, like I said, a lot less strokes to give away here. And if you can lock in with your irons and be respectable off the tee, you should have a chance. So anyone else under 45-1 you're looking at, Matt?
I considered Keegan Bradley for a minute. I would say I don't really trust his putter to win.
He's actually putted pretty well. But
yeah,
I agree with you.
which is kind of drawing me in, but it's also why his numbers so good, I think. And
Right.
just I've watched enough Keegan Bradley over the years to have seen it go the other way.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, he's 5th in my model. Yeah. I mean, it's actually a decent sample size, too. Last 36 rounds, he's 18th in this field in strokes gained putting. So, but it is a 33-1. It's not super appealing. Keegan, another guy who hasn't won in a while.
Yeah. I mean, should we just run with that narrative entirely?
I'm not taking him, but it's on the board.
Yeah, I mean, Keegan, Gary, we could just run down a list of guys who haven't won recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's crazy that Cam Davis is at 27-1 on FanDuel, 35-1. I mean, I get it. He won here last year, but that seems kind of egregious. I think you can get some guys with probably equal to even better win equity further down the board. So, yeah, I'm pretty much sticking with Denny and Russ under 50 and then moving down to some longer shots. So,
yeah, I might just do Russ.
All right. I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it. We're selling ourselves on it's going to be a random winner, someone over 45, 50-1. So I like that. So let's, I guess, keep opening up the board. I mean, yeah, like Kisner, Adam Scott, I think they're at decent numbers at 37, but I don't love either of them to win this week. I think they'd probably be relatively popular in the golf gambling community. We'll see. But it feels like a good week to kind of spread your money around as the board goes down. So 45-1 and above, we got Mark Hubbard and Gary Woodland at 45, Siwoo Kim at 50, and then Brendan Steele, Troy Merritt, Chris Gotterup, Jason Day, Taylor Pendrith, Scott Stallings, Kevin Streelman, Harris English, J.H. Kim, all at 60-1 on FanDuel, and then Michael Thorbornson, I just butchered the hell out of that, Adam Svensson at 65, Wyndham Clark, Bill Damon, Matt Kuchar, Johnny Vegas at 65, Nick Hardy at 65, Alex Smalley at 70, and then we're 80 and above into the long shot range. Even these guys are to a degree long shots. But like I said about the guys being over 100, you got to take a peek at why they're over 100. I am listing off a shit ton of names, and we're not even at 80-1 yet. So board is yours, Matt. Anyone is available.
Yes, feels like a pretty good range. I'm always kind of drawn to Siwoo Kim. He looked good at the Open. His numbers kind of in the modeling don't look great. I would say that doesn't include the Open as a positive for him. I'm not sure if I'll get there, but that is kind of intriguing to me. Scott Stallings is the name I'm considering. He's hitting it pretty well with his irons lately, and he's putting pretty well. It kind of is gross seeing a 60 next to Scott Stallings' name. But he's kind of a name that keeps sticking out to me. I might get there with him. Someone that I'm definitely going to get to, I'm going to Adam Svensson this week. I know that last week he burnt pretty much what seemed like the whole community. But how many times have we seen a guy let down everybody and then the next week come out and play great? So his approach and putting numbers are still, kind of fine over the last 36 rounds. He's a good young player. This course, there's not nearly as much trouble as last week. I mean, I think you touched on it before the show, saying that, he birdied, 6 holes in the first round and got over par.
Yeah.
Kind of wild, but a positive to take out of that is that he made 6 birdies. Yeah. On this course, when you're not running into a ton of trouble, you're kind of looking for guys that can make a lot of birdies. That's what you're going for this week. So it's 65-1. That it feels like a pretty good number for a guy that, even though we didn't see a good result from him last week, we still saw him make a lot of birdies.
Well, yeah, and I think it's interesting that he is at 65, where there are guys with better resumes who are behind him at 80-1 and further. I think the books are still respecting the fact that he can make a ton of birdies and that this could be a course that suits him. I may end up joining you on that, but I do have a few names that I need to rattle off here. I'm going to go back to Scott Stallings, who I did take at the John Deere. And if you take out the U.S. Open and the Memorial, 2 tougher courses, 2 places that I would not suggest taking Scott Stallings. He did not play well. The last 3 events we've seen him at, the Charles Schwab finished 4th, the Travelers finished 8th, John Deere finished 4th. The putter has been really good. Gained 3.8 strokes at Charles Schwab, 3 strokes at the John Deere, and a stroke and a half at the Travelers. We know Scott can really strike the ball. I mean, he's been gaining strokes off the tee. He's been gaining strokes on approach. around the green game is another part of his game that's not super high. He's just not very good around the green, but we don't really need that this week. So I'm okay with that. Scott modeled out relatively well for me too. He's 11th in my model. Good ball striker and approach, been great putting, gains on the par fives, gets birdies in bunches, plays well on the easier courses. This is Scott Snollies. I know the number's not great, but I mean, we're over 50 to 1. You don't have to risk a lot to win a lot. I like Scott, 60 to 1. So he'll be added to the card. And then another guy who we've talked about a ton on Draws and Fades history and has won us money before, and he's coming back into the mix. And I feel like it's time to start dabbling again before we see him play really well, and then those numbers are gone. Harris English, 60 to 1. I mean, over his last 36 rounds, he's 7th on the easy courses in this field. And he's putted well since he's come back. Everything else has been not super great. And we didn't see him for 5 months. So, I mean, I think that in 2021, he played unreal. So I don't know how. I think that getting these rounds under his belt, he played the U.S. Open, made the cut, played well at the Travelers, which I think is probably my biggest inclination for him starting to get back into things. He did putt really well there, which is probably why he finished so high, finished 19th. But, yeah, I kind of think the ball strike is going to eventually turn around for Harris. And I don't know. I'm under the impression that taking Harris before he starts really playing well could end up coming into fruition where he wins an event and then, the worst case scenario is he plays well, doesn't win, and then he continues to play well, doesn't win, and we end up with him back. If this was this event last year, he'd be 20, 25 to 1. So how do you feel about that?
I mean, I like Harris as well. Burnt me a little bit at the Open Championship. I had him for a finishing position, and he was very not good. Obviously, this is a much different style of golf this week. He has been putting really well, which is going to be huge this week. Coming back off injury, tough to gauge where he is, but he's certainly playing a lot, which, indicates that his health is fine and is working his way back. I mean, I think if there was any questions with the health, he would probably just,
he wouldn't have played the Scottish Open. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I could certainly see it. I could certainly get there. I guess in this field, 60 is not a bad number on him.
Well, I like that. So, where are you at? Anyone else under 80, or should we go to the long shots?
I have one more guy at 80.
All right.
Did we get there yet?
Although I guess I didn't even read off the guys at 80. So, I mean,
yeah.
Over 80, we got some familiar faces: Luke List, Ricky Fowler, then Callum Tarrant, Patrick Rogers, Mackenzie Hughes, Doug Gim, Trey Molinak, CT Pan are all at 80. And Ryan Palmer, Danny Willett, Kurt Kitayama, 95 to 1 on FanDuel, and then 100 and above. And this is definitely where I suggest taking a peek around, seeing what's available on certain books, see if you can get a better number. But let it rip, Matt. 80 to 1. Who you got?
I'm taking Callum Tarrant.
All right.
I have not taken him before. But I will say I kind of like what I'm seeing lately. He's got 2 top 10s in his last 4 starts. He's one of the guys that kind of fits the profile of approach and putting this week. Last week he was 10th in the field in approach at the 3M. He finished top 10 in the field at the U.S. Open as well, which is pretty telling because they had very small greens there at Brookline. So it kind of shows that his irons are dialed in. He has now gained in 4 straight events on approach, and he's gained 7 of his last 8 putting. So He's got the putter working pretty well as well. So those are 2 things that that I like. Obviously not a prolific winner by any standard. He hasn't won, but he's one of those guys that seems to be kind of hitting his stride. He started off the season really bad and has sort of rounded into form. So I'm going to kind of ride the hot hand there with Callum Tarrant. 80 to 1 feels like a pretty good number to take a shot at.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Similarly, I think he burned me at the Scottish Open where he missed the cut, but he has been pretty good. I mean, 2 top 10s in his last 3 events. So I like that 80 to 1 guy trending in the right direction, guy that can make some birdies. I let it rip. Love it. So I guess I'll have to talk about Luke List and Ricky Fowler. I'm tempted by both of them, but not really sure. I like Luke List in a putting contest, and I don't know if Ricky Fowler can make enough birdies at this point, even though I really want to take him at 80 to 1. So bite my tongue there. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I will say he's probably at a better number on DraftKings. Yeah, it's 100 to 1. That makes it a lot more interesting, but still probably a bad idea. So I'm not going to suggest that that's a good idea. Just saying, if there was a week that Ricky Fowler could potentially pop off, it could be this week. Not as strong of a field. Not a lot of pressure in Detroit.
Yeah, pretty fair.
Yeah. I actually am very interested in your Callum Tarrant pick too. So I will be joining you for sure on either Svensson or Tarrant. I think I might be more inclined to join on Tarrant, but I have a few long shots over 100 to 1, and that's basically my card for now. Probably add some top 10s and 20s later on, but do you have any significant long shots coming up?
Doc Redman and Smo are two guys that kind of always catch my eye down here, but I have not committed to either yet. I could be talked into a long shot if you have someone you could sell.
Yeah, well, one of them was Doc, so I'm going to take Doc. I mean, we've taken him enough. We're not going to take him at an event where he's finished second only 3 years ago. I mean, we have to. So I'm going to do that. The numbers aren't great. He's been really not good at pretty much everything, which is unfortunate. But he's one of those guys that I feel like gets hot. And we've even seen him get hot for stretches of golf on a 2-day span, obviously, because he's missed 6 of his last 7 cuts. But 1 week he didn't. He finished 21st at the Barbasol. So 160 to 1. Yeah, I get it. He's been horrible. So there's really no type of reason to take Doc Redman this week, other than there have been random things that happen at the Detroit Golf Club, and this could be a week that Doc feels comfortable at a course he's shot low before, and see if he can do it again.
We have seen stretches of good golf out of him, albeit, they've been pretty few and far between. But I remember even he gave it a good run at the Zurich, obviously earlier in the year. But like you said, and that's another easy course. So we have seen him on easier courses just kind of fire. So yeah, I mean, he's one of our guys that we've taken enough that if we're not going to take him this week at 160 to 1, what are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, you can't talk up Doc Redman for the whole year as he plays horribly and then not take him at an event like this where he still played horribly, but we have at least some course history and a great number. So, and to be fair, in 2020, he also finished in 21st. So he's got 2 legitimate performances at the Rocket Mortgage. The field is a little bit, I would say it's a winnable field. Obviously, we do have Cantlay here. We have Zalatoris, Finau. We have some great players, but there was a week for a random winner like Doc Redman to win. It would be this week, so I'd like that. And my last pick over 100 to 1 is going to be Grayson Sigg, who we just recently saw play very well last week, putted well, played great on approach, finished 7th. We've seen 3 consecutive pretty good performances out of him in July. Hot month for him, 16th at the John Deere, 27th at the Barbasol, 7th at the 3M. Again, another guy, young guy who can definitely get hot in bunches. He didn't model out particularly great. He's been, over a 36 round barometer. He struggled at times with his irons, but definitely a guy who can get hot. So I'm going to ride with Grayson Sigg and Doc over 100 and hope one of them can get in the mix come the weekend. But kind of like I mentioned before, over 100 to 1 in this field, there's going to be some holes because there are a shit ton of guys under 100 to 1, and if you're over 100 to 1, you're probably there for a reason. So the reasons are they have not played well this year. So that's where I'm at. Do you add anyone else besides Doc down here? Are you going to take Smo? I've been
riding Smo. It's weird. He's been kind of hanging around in events. He has not been playing bad, but obviously he hasn't done anything too notable as far as a finish. So it would be kind of a stretch to, I guess, see him winning, but he's been playing fairly well. So I don't necessarily, I don't know. I could see myself getting there.
All right. Well, if you don't have any, oh my God, Doc's at 300 on DraftKings. So yeah, wow. There it is. What's Sig at? Sig's at 100 and Doc's at 300. That's wild. Yeah. So Doc, you know what? Now I'm heavily suggesting taking Doc 300 to 1. That is definitely worth it.
if you've taken Morgan Hoffman before this year, if you had any reason to go back, he is currently at 1,000 to 1.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
He's at 250 on DraftKings. That's crazy.
Yeah. Maybe we found a hole here.
Yeah. Wow. Throw $1 on Morgan Hoffman. Boss, any thoughts on who you're taking this week? And then we'll quickly give some one and done picks. I'm a little dejected from last week, but I need to rally. Still in contention. Who do you got this week, boss?
All right.
Picks and one and done. Yeah.
Right now, the only bet I have in is also my one and done selection. I'm actually shocked I even have him left. I mean, it makes sense because I'm a moron at one and done, but I'm taking Max Homa. I got him outright. I got him one and done. That's really all I have. I agree with your sentiment that long shots are definitely live this week. But as everyone knows, not really my style. Also, not really an option for me. That's a whole other discussion. But I love Max Homa. I think at 20, what I got on him, perfectly fair in this field. I'm going to round out with some deeper guys, but I have some thinking to do and some requests to put in to make that happen. So,
okay,
Callum Tarrant will be on my list on that.
I
was thinking about it before you sold me, but I'm in.
I like that.
Lovely.
I don't know. I got to look at tee times. I know we typically favor morning tee times for first round leader. Tends to work out well. Not always the case, but usually more favorable conditions, softer course, all that good stuff. Got to look at who's going off, but I'm hoping Cam Young doesn't have too bad of a number. I fear he might because he's up there on the board, but sometimes the first round leaders aren't equivalent of their outright numbers. You know what I mean? Like it's usually
you get a little bit of a boost. Yeah,
a little bit of a boost, but he's been he gets started quick a lot. I think he's hit at least one or maybe two first round leaders. If not, he's definitely been in the mix because
he hit it at the Open.
I've been on him a few. Yeah, there we go. I've been on him a few times though, so I was kicking myself at the Open for not riding, my horse per se. But I mean, this course in theory sets up for his strength, so I could see him.
He does have that afternoon tee time, I believe.
Does he?
I believe.
All right. Well,
I don't want to knock you off your high horse at this point, but at this, if there's a guy who can do it, it'd be him. So I don't hate that. All right. So just to round out my card, I'm going with Denny McCarthy, Russell Henley, Scott Stallings, Harris English, and then most likely joining on Callum Tarrant, and then Grayson Sigg and Doc Redman. 300 to 1 on Doc is fucking gorgeous. And then one and done, it's tough. For this late in the year, it's kind of crazy. I have basically everyone available to pick besides Cantlay and Homa. Really sucks that I didn't take Finau last week because now I kind of want to take him this week, but I don't think he wins back to back. I could use a winner. I may do Cameron Young.
Okay.
It's probably between him and Zalatoris. I'm not going to get too cheeky like I did last week. You got to take one of the better guys that you have available, and I'm privileged enough to have a few of them. So we'll see where I end up. But it's going to be one of the guys towards the top of the board. Matt, you want to recap your card and what you're doing one and done?
Yeah, my card is looking like Russell Henley. I think I'm going to go with Scott Stallings with you, Adam Svensson, Callum Tarrant, and then I think I'm going to go with my guys Smo and Doc down low. One and done. I think I'm going to use Russell Henley.
Okay.
I could definitely use a winner. Definitely pretty much.
I use Russell Henley. Yep.
So, hopefully Henley can deliver this week and continue the trend of non-winners winning.
That would be lovely. That would be absolutely lovely. So PGA Tour season rolls on. We have the Wyndham next week, and then the playoffs are the week after. So we'll have the Northern Trust, the BMW, and then the Tour Championship. And then we'll see what kind of shitstorm happens with the LIV Tour and how many guys end up going over there, if they change their structure at all. And we'll get into all of that on our next episode, previewing the LIV and what we have to look forward to this week. So appreciate everyone for listening. Good luck to everyone this week. Let's hit a winner. Russell Henley, let's get it done for the boys.